Hello, this is Ryan Riccitelli with asnews.net, and today we have one of the co-owners of Caution, Jeff Burton. He's been around in the kiteboarding industry for ages. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey Ryan, thanks a lot. My name is Jeff Burton and co-owner of Caution Kites, and have been in the kiteboarding industry towards the beginning, really the beginning of kiteboarding in the U.S. back in the day when, we were making all of our own product, tying our own lines, making kite bars out of boom extensions, and trying to learn as much as we could from the veterans at that time, which were Elliot LeBeau and Lou Wayman. So seeing the industry go full circle from there, it's pretty amazing, really.
You did some editing for some I think it was the Kiteboarding magazine.
Yeah, I was West Coast editor for Kiteboarding magazine at the beginning of that magazine, and was also involved in the windsurfing industry, was a professional windsurfer for many years, and then West Coast editor for Windsurfing magazine, and also was one of the part of, I guess, Liquid Force Kiteboarding in the beginning, helped start up that division, and then I've segued over to Caution.
And Jeff, you used to be one of the first professional kiteboarders, and now you're obviously one of the co-owners of Caution. And how did that all transpire?
Well, really, I came to a fork in the road, and I was looking at either going on pursuing the professional kiteboarding career further. When I got an opportunity to become part of a company in the industry, and really, my body was so beat up at the time. I had bad knee. I was like, I need to get something with some steady income and solidify my position. So that's really the story there. And from that, I got into Caution. Peter and Paul were long childhood friends of mine. We've known each other since I was about 11 years old. So we've gone way, way, way back. And it's just been a great working relationship ever since I've come over with those guys. They're great guys.
Let's talk a little bit about the first Waddell Creek contest, because I think you were actually in it, weren't you?
Yeah, definitely. The first Waddell Creek contest year for kiteboarding be held there. I think I don't know, one of maybe 15 pros that year or something. It was pretty funny. Everyone's just coming over from Hawaii and California, and we were on foils there at the time, and there's inflatables from, I think, Whippica and Nash. Everybody had their own style boards and bindings, and it was pretty hilarious. Everybody getting together and kind of seeing what works, what doesn't work. That was a pretty cool contest, really.
You're in really tight with the whole Santa Cruz crew. Obviously, you work with them all the time now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, how the Caution crew and Santa Cruz all fits together.
The Santa Cruz crew, they're a really tight-knit crew. That whole, area up there, really from surfing back in the day forever, is just a really tight crew of people, really good people that love the ocean. They spend all their time there and, are very passionate about their local beaches and their local breaks. And they're just solid people.
Peter and Paul Scheibel, brothers, they've been around since day one as well. They're involved in, the windsurfing industry. And what's the deal with their goatees?
I don't know. I would venture to say it has something to do with their nationality. They're both Danish. And they've had them ever since I've known them. Actually, Paul's had some different variations from a long handlebar mustache, kind of like a lumberjack thing. I guess not handlebar, but come down lumberjack style. So they've been into the facial hair for as long as I can remember, probably as long as they've been growing it. I think it's just become part of them, their characters. If you get to know those guys, from the outside, they may seem intimidating, but they're honestly the coolest, most mellow people you could know.
Unless you cut them off at Waddell.
Yeah, I think everybody's got their mean streak, or you don't want to cross the wrong people, and you definitely don't want to cross them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, fun aside, let's talk a little bit about, the Caution whole line. I mean, you've got some great new kites. You've got your new bow kite, or flat kite, whatever's SLE. I don't know. There's all these different ways to call these kites, and everyone seems to argue about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your kites?
Well, we've got our new kite, and I think it falls under the heading of flat kite or SLE, whatever you want to go there. It's a bridle supported leading edge kite. That's we call it the Answer, and it's just an amazing kite. I think it's a combination of like all the features that you like out of a flat kite, but none of the negatives. And the negatives would be heavy bar pressure, complicated bar, long bridles, all those kind of things that have just been real negative for them. And we went the simplified route, try to get a kite that had all the performance that people liked out of the flat kite, which was the depowerability, and really just explored that route and came to what we have now, which again, the Answer kite, which is a little more C-shaped than some of the other ones, maybe a little bit more vertical leading edge than some of the other ones, but you get all the depowerability still, but you also get a really tight, quick responding kite, more like a C-shaped kite. So we're just super excited about it.
Well, and with that kite, you also have a sea kite.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently we have the Spitfire 3, which is doing really well, which is a 5th line kite, or it can be flown 4-line both. That kite's doing really well, and it's just always been a really, really steady, solid kite for us. That one's been around from the inception with improvements every year. On top of that, we do have another C-shaped kite coming out called the Heckler, which is maybe a little lower aspect than the Spitfire, but it's got an incredible range as well. More range than say the Spitfire or whatnot, but nothing like the flat kite of ours, the Answer.
What kite or what kind of kiteboarder are these kites designed for?
Really, our line, with the 3 different kites is really vast, and really any style rider, really. I think we just got off the road doing a demo event up and down California and had great wind. And each location we went, we really had, anybody from, let's say, intermediate to advanced riding our kites and really enjoying them. So it kind of just depends what kind of style of riding you want to do, or what kind of genre, I guess, you put yourself into of riding.
Do you see the Answer kite taking over the whole line, like where you guys eventually won't be making sea kites?
No, it's a really interesting question, really good question. It's interesting because a lot of the doubters, even within the company, team rider-wise, who were thinking, we're never going to ride a flat kite. Flat kites are for wusses, or, kind of had like a negative connotation towards them, which is really just out of ignorance or being naive about them, really, and not ever have ridden them. So these team riders, getting a chance to ride the Answer, have just been blown away, and probably 95% of our team has chosen to come over and ride the Answer kite. The performance on it for them is just that much better. It does all the things that they want their kite to do, and then more. All the things that they were missing before that they didn't really know they were missing, now they're able to achieve, which is that depowerability, just riding along and making riding easy now. You're not grinding along and just, I think that allows you to ride longer on the water instead of just wearing your body out. You can take that extra energy and turn it into a longer session. It's pretty cool.
Let's talk a little bit about your boards. Why don't you give us a heads up on what our listeners can expect to see in the 06 line?
Yeah, our 06 line of boards, starting with the red lines. Red lines are performance twin tip boards, and in those we have a 122, a 132, and a 142. Those boards have been our staple. They're just a super easy board to ride, super fun to ride. Got a nice continuous rocker line, been used in the waves. You can any of those boards can be used in a quad fin configuration on the back foot for riding waves, or it can be ridden 4-fin. Really just a fun board for different styles. That's a great wake style board or wave board, depending on how you set up the fins. And then new for 2006, we have the Hustler board line, which comes in 135 by 18 inches wide and a 145 by 18 inches wide. This board was designed this last year by Jimmy Lewis and ourselves, and turned out just to be a sweet board. It's just super forgiving, really easy to ride. You know, if the wind conditions are at all wholly up and down or whatever, you're just able to glide through the holes. And then likewise, when the wind comes up, you're still able to hold an edge on it, which is just mind-boggling, because you would think with the width at 18 inches, you'd just be pulled off your edge. But, you know, with Jimmy's rail, you're just able to just dig in and ride with it. And the combination that I think is just unbelievable is the, you know, flat kite and that board. I mean, it's just, talk about range from just having, you know, a 12-meter kite and a 135 board is just a sweet, sweet combo. It's unbelievable.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Lewis boards, and I don't think you can go wrong with any of his shapes for sure. And I know that Jimmy shapes a lot of different boards, but I know that the caution board you're talking about is definitely different than a lot of the other shapes that I've seen.
The great thing about working with Jimmy is you know, he puts his magic touch into everything that he does, you know. And it's definitely, like, has a Jimmy touch to it, but the cool thing about working with Jimmy is he doesn't tell you what to do. You tell him, you kind of work together. It's like a process of getting there together. And I think that's the coolest thing about working with Jimmy. You know, he's just an incredible, really an artist, you know, what he puts out. It's a good, great experience working with Jimmy Lewis.
Who are some of the team riders that ride your, you know, caution gear?
Yeah, we've got a lot of riders, you know, a lot of California riders, a lot of international riders, Netherlands, Stas Van Ostrom, one of our riders, in the U.S., Brendan Richards, Dave Broom, we've got Ian Aldridge, Rebecca Walters for female side of things. I'm sure I'm going to forget a bunch of names, and the team riders are going to beat me down, or try anyways. Chuck Patterson, you know, incredible waterman Chuck. Patterson rides for us, great rider as well. Ryan, am I forgetting anybody?
You know, I think you probably covered just about everybody. You know, the one thing I was going to say is, like, you know, not everybody knows who does what at caution, and why don't you give a little breakdown?
Well, really, you know, Peter, Paul, and myself really wear multiple hats, and we're involved on multiple levels at the company. I tend to handle the sales, domestic, international, and marketing, along with doing the product development with those guys. Peter does the kite development, and has been doing that for a really long time, and he's got a long history of windsurfing design and kite design from the beginning. And then Paul works along with Peter doing the kite designs and works on board design and a lot of the accessories stuff with myself, and he does the marketing as well. So in that, you know, this last year we purchased and started our own factory in Sri Lanka for building kites, which was pretty exciting, and it's been like a major on-taking for us. And, you know, the reason for doing that for us was to better control our quality and product output, along with, you know, just guaranteeing that we'll have our place in the kiteboarding industry for as long as we want.
There's talk of you guys building other people's kites, and where do you see the factory end of things going?
Yeah, that was really, you know, our factory is it's really a separate business from Caution. The factory is name is CDSL Lanka, and we do OEM projects for other companies. And that was really another thing that we saw as starting a new business, and wanting to grow that separately, and just seeing opportunity there to build, you know, other people's kites. We see a need for build, you know, nice, good quality product that doesn't come from China. So it gives these manufacturers another option when they're looking at different factories to build their stuff. You know, Sri Lanka is seen as a trade-friendly country, and China's not, so that makes a big difference for import duties for a lot of these different companies.
Obviously, you guys get to travel a lot between the different places, and what's the riding like over there?
this last time we found some really, really cool places to ride. I mean, it was just, it was really neat because it felt like it was just rediscovering like brand new kiteboarding places all over again. We're driving along with these people that don't know where to go and really can't advise us a whole lot, and we're just driving up and down this coastline for hours. And we took a trip from where we are, our factory is over there in Kandana, driving over to the entire other side of that island of Sri Lanka, which was like literally 12 hours in this van, bumping, driving. It was just incredibly ferocious on us, really. To finally get there and just like see a completely beautiful beach, warm water, bright blue water, and wind was just incredible. And then trying to find the spot to ride, and we just drove until we finally saw this place, and we looked and we were like, that looks a lot like, waves powerful like Waddell, but, nice wind direction, steady wind like C Street. And we just said, let's go for it. Threw up 10-meter kites and just had like an incredible 2-hour session. Or you're riding and you're looking back at the beach, and it's like this village, and this entire village that came out, all these cars are stopping on the side of the road. There's literally like hundreds of people coming out to watch us ride, and at the same time there's it looked like a temple on this island that was just like upwind from us. I mean, it was like very spiritual, really, really cool experience for us.
Obviously, 2007's right around the corner, and what do we have in store for next year for gear?
Well, basically, our gear for 06 is done, and as designers, as soon as it's done, we're immediately moving to working on the next year. The job never ends. So, we're experimenting with a lot of different, designs in the kiting stuff, and the kite designs, and then also looking at a few of the different board designs. We have one other board coming out in 06 that I think I didn't mention, which is our surf style board, which is called the Trespass, which is a really, really fun board. It's 5'11" by, I believe, 18 and a quarter or something. Board is just great for lighter winds, cruising around, or if you do have good surf, really good in the surf. Caution, our whole brand was started back in the day in Santa Cruz because of the surf. So we've been, from the beginning, kite surf company, and a lot of our products have been started to work in the surf, and so that's been a big focus of our brand from really the beginning. And then we branched more off into also creating product that worked in flat water as well, which would have been like our Hustler boards and whatnot, but still sticking true to our roots. The Trespass board is really a big hit this year in 06, so I'd definitely check that out if you get a chance.
Well, Jeff, we got to wrap things up, but do you guys have any demos or upcoming, places that you're going to be?
We do. We'll be at the Pismo Kite Festival. I believe that's April 19th. No,
there's a commercial on this on the podcast with all the information, so
yeah, so look for that. I'm sure it's in the magazines on the web and whatnot. We're constantly doing demos up and down California. We're going to be heading out to the East Coast. We'll be in the Gorge this summer. I know we're coming out to see you in Corpus the month of April. So look for us. You can't miss us. Come up, say hi, try out the gear. I promise we won't bite.
Is there anybody you want to give some props to?
I'll just give props to my boys, Peter and Paul.
Well, right on, Jeff. Well, we'll be talking to you soon, and we'll get you back on the show.
Right on, Ryan. Appreciate it, man.
All right, have a good one.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye. Hello, this is Ryan Riccitelli with asnews.net, and this week I have a special guest from Canada, Mark Godley, and he is the guy who designed Turbo Launcher, and he lives up in Canada, and so why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Ryan. Yeah, I live in Vancouver on the west coast. It's pretty cold up here right now, but we ride all year round these days. But I can tell you that about 4 or 5 years ago, there weren't that many kiteboarders around, and it was kind of like a summer sport. But now it's totally an all year round sport.
Well, and where do you ride up there? What's your local beaches?
Well, we've got like basically three local beaches. One is Squamish, which is a summer destination. It's a thermal wind. And then we've got the local beach here right in the city itself, which is called Jericho, which really goes off with what we call a northwesterly wind. And then we've got Boundary Bay, which is a southeasterly sort of beach, a tidal area where it's fairly shallow and a good place to learn. But thank goodness for the new wetsuits and the new dry suits and that are available. We can now kiteboard all year round.
And you're definitely a wind junkie. A lot of people don't know this, but you're a doctor and you have a real thriving practice in Canada. And like, what inspired you to want to like get into the kiteboarding industry and develop a product like Turbo Launcher?
Well, it goes back at least 4 years now, 4 or 5 years actually. I just became absolutely addicted to the sport, and I think, like many of us, it's the most incredible experience, and the freedom that you get from the sport is just something else. I windsurfed for many years, and there was just nothing that could come close to windsurfing for me, other than this kiteboarding, and so I just basically had the time to spend a lot of time in the water, and the more time I spent in the water, the more I kind of realized that there were some things that the sport is in evolution, and it still is in evolution, and there were things that needed to be done to make it better, and so the opportunity came. I mean, we don't have nice beaches here. The Squamish area, you basically have to launch off the end of a pier, and in an offshore situation, and there's rocks and there's barnacles and all sorts of things. So a buddy of mine, we got together, we looked at launching off the back of jet skis, and it was very cool. Went to Home Depot, and we thought up this idea of how we could roll the lines onto a piece of PVC piping, and we did that, and it worked. And no sooner we were launching our kites off the back of the jet skis and having the greatest time, and then I just had this opportunity. I was working with, I had a friend who's a design engineer, and she basically designed something, and we got more into the R&D side of things, and ended up with a turbo launcher invention.
And that the turbo launcher invention, I think a lot of people at first, they like raised an eyebrow and said, oh, it's just another gimmick product, but I know a lot of people who actually use it and they swear by it, and there's been some evolution in design of the turbo launcher. You've had one come out and then you released another one, and like tell us a little bit about that and how it's been received.
Well, I think the R&D side of this product was that I basically took it to market straight away, and I said I'm going to let the kiteboarders of the world tell me what's wrong with it, and that's what I did with the first production run. And then I was able to take all of the criticisms and try and incorporate that into the follow-up design. And that's what I did. I made it smaller. I made it more compact. I looked at the rubber nose where the lines are snapped in and changed that slightly. So we were able to sort of develop it further. But I think the turbo launcher right now is at that point where it really can't go much further in R&D. It is what it is. You have to learn how to use it, and that takes some experience. And once you experienced it using it, there's a lot of people who just swear by it, especially in busy places like the Gorge and certainly congested beaches all over the place. And it's been great. And then, but what did come of the turbo launcher was the line manager. It's a funny thing when you start with inventing something. Just one thing leads to another, because you keep on thinking of other sort of ideas that come out of the first idea. I mean, there's a saying, no idea is an original idea. It always originates from somewhere else, and that's so true.
Well, and a lot of people, they look at the turbo launcher and they find it as a useful tool, and it cuts down a lot of the setup time. And then there's obviously the people who just assume that, like, oh, I can just wrap my lines this way. And like, what do you say to a person like that?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, there are some your pro kiteboarders and guys who kite every day, and they've got one kite and they live in a nice place where They've got beach access, and it's nice and warm all the time, that you can take your time laying out your lines, and you never have to detach the lines from your kite. You can just roll everything up. That's great, okay? But majority of us, I can tell you, is kite in places where you don't have those luxuries. At the end of the day, you're rolling everything up, you're putting it in the back of your car, and you're going home and you're dumping it somewhere in your house, and you don't know how you've rolled your lines up. You don't know how your kite is lying, and you really can't take that chance. So what the line manager has done, and what the turbo launcher has done, is just taken that risk out of it. You know that your line's always good to go. You know that you can just hook them up. You know that you don't need a lot of space to hook up your kite, and basically the amount of time that it takes to get on the water is just decreased tremendously by using the devices, and you never have to worry. You can detach your lines, you can use it on another kite, but you know that your line's always good to go.
R&D is expensive, and obviously, I've seen patent pending on your product, and, do you actually expect to make a profit on this? I mean, what's your main goal? I think a lot of people don't realize what you're truly about, and I think this might give our listeners a chance to hear it from, straight from you.
Oh, no, I mean, it would take years and years to see profit out of this. I mean, this is just not going to be something that you can make profit out of. I mean, the R&D costs have been well over, at least, I mean, just to have a tool made, a rotor mold made for the injection molds made has been extremely expensive. So, that's the reality of R&D in North America. And that's why a lot of this stuff is not done yet. It's done in China and other places in the world where you can get away with things cheaper. And fortunately now I do have the contacts in China, and things can be done a lot cheaper in China. But I've got to tell you that it is a very expensive outlay. But what has come of this has been a tremendous opportunity to meet all over the world, and to be able to speak to somebody through Skype in Australia or in South America, or the connections I now have in Italy and Europe. It's tremendous, and that's what it's all about. And we all have this common goal, this common enjoyment, which is kiteboarding, and to meet people who all get the same high. It's tremendous. You really learn about the human condition, and you really learn about humanity. It's an amazing experience, and this is what this invention has done for me. It's amazing.
And you've had a chance to travel a lot of places, and I know like I said, you're a doctor, and you're really busy with that career. In how do you balance both, and where do you go when do you travel away, or do you kite locally, or?
Well, I kite locally, but I'm married to my wife is from Barbados, so I spend a lot of time in Barbados, and my favorite beach is Silver Rock in Barbados. So I spend a lot of time there. I go there fairly often. It's a fairly cool place, but the wind is not that consistent there. Obviously, it's not like Dominican, but when it goes off, it's pretty cool. And other than that, it's local stuff. So, and then being South African, I do travel to South Africa occasionally, maybe once every 2 years, and spend a bit of time in the high winds off of Cape Town, which is a totally cool experience as well. But the cool thing is that wherever you go, it doesn't matter what the accent is, people are still enjoying the same thing, and that's kiteboarding.
You've done a lot for kiteboarding up in Canada, and you helped put on, the Richard Branson Squamish event that went on up there. And why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think it was a hang of a risky thing to just decide, without him knowing about it, that we were going to launch off the back of the boats. And I think he was sweating for about 2 hours when we went out of the boat and we said to him, Richard, you're going to be launching off the back of the boat. I mean, he literally was sweating about it, and he was really worried that the whole thing was going to flop out. But we spent a good 3 days training, and the girls were excellent, and we had it down to a team. And we had those 4 kites launched off the back of the boat using the turbo launchers within 10 minutes, and it was tremendous. I think that he was blown away by the whole thing, and I think the event was a tremendous success for Virgin, and I just know, because the after party, he was pretty hyped up after that, and it worked out really well. He got all the media attention he needed for launching his mobile phone service, and I got the opportunity to travel to his island and spend time on Necker, which was I kited actually every single day on Necker for 7 days. It was a tremendous experience, and to spend that time with this man who's a truly special human being. He's not your average person. I mean, he's just what he's been able to accomplish is just phenomenal.
Well, and you've made a good, obviously, connection there. Like, you know, Richard Branson, for those of you who don't know, he owns Necker Island, which is down in the British Virgin Islands, and it's right adjacent to or across the sound from the Bitter End Yacht Club. So we've been down there and we've played around there, and I can't imagine what it had to be like being able to stay on that island, because I've heard that it's just amazing. You know, and I think it's great that what you've done for kiteboarding and putting, you know, a guy like Richard Branson together, you know, up in Squamish and connecting it all together for, you know, the greater good of growing the sport. And is he still a pretty avid kiteboarder?
Yeah, no, I'm still in contact with him. In fact, I'm going back again this year, later on this year, and I think that one of the best things that could ever happen was bringing these new SLE and bow kites to the market, because it definitely has reduced the risk tremendously in the sport, and for a man like Richard Branson, who I can tell you right now, just at his age and all that, you know, he enjoys. He doesn't do it often, but when he does it, he wants to feel safe, and he wants to know that he's not going to get injured and all that. And you know, he's been on these new design kites, and it's made a difference to him, and it's opened things up quite a lot on his island. I think that the last time I spoke to him, he was seriously considering opening up a part of his island for kiteboarding, and I think that would be totally cool. But we'll see later on this year. I'm going back there in October again.
What, obviously, people always wonder, you know, you're a designer, you do things, you do a lot of R&D. What kites are you on?
Well, I'm now on Nash. I've gone to the Nash kites, and I really enjoy them, and I've been on them for some time. I've used their 5-line, and now I'm on their SLE kites, and it's great. I mean, I don't mind. You know, even Cabrina were good. I still got my Cabrina kites. I like them as well. All the new kites that are coming out these days, I mean, they're all really good products, and I'm never going to have an allegiance to one particular brand. I think that I'll just see how it goes. I'm kind of fair weathered when it comes to the kites that I use. I just enjoy the sport.
Well, and I think the turbo launcher, obviously, it's gained popularity as you know, it's infiltrated the market. Are there any new products that you're working on?
Yeah, actually, I've refined a new type of line manager that'll be coming out in the next 2 months, and Ryan, I'll be sure to share it with you. I'm going to send it on to you guys as soon as my guy in China gets cracking on it. But I should have some prototypes in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I cannot wait for them to arrive. It's really exciting. It's great.
Well, I want to thank you for, you know, taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk with us. And obviously, where can our listeners learn more about Turbo Launcher and what you're doing?
Well, they can go to the website at kitelauncher.com, and there's always some updates there. The news update section usually is pretty cool. And yeah, go from there. And
also, we always do it. We let everyone, you know, give a shout out to their friends on here. So why don't you give a shout out to whoever you want to talk?
Well, to those guys down in Cape Town, I wish I was there this year, but maybe next year. Sounds good. I'm sure they're having great winds this time of the year. The wind usually this time in Cape Town is blowing 35 knots, and it's just every day blowing, until eventually the surf goes flat. I mean, it's just incredible. I miss it.
Thanks for your time, and, you know, we'll hopefully get you on here again when you release some new products.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, Mark. Bye-bye.